Okay, greetings, travelers. In this short video, we are going to talk about what it would be like to travel in the fifth dimension, or how fifth dimensional beings would be able to just instantly transverse huge distances across the universe that would otherwise make Einstein and people like Schrodinger very upset. This also would go to greatly explain the phenomena of quantum entanglement and things of this nature. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to try to explain this using an analogy based in video games, using something like Super Mario Brothers. We know Super Mario. It's a linear kind of scrolling game. Now, the concept here that we want to focus on is distance. The distance between, like, let's say here and the furthest reaches of the universe, the time that it would take us in our four-dimensional thinking and being trapped in space-time, as it were, is a linear progression. Just like in Super Mario, it's going to take you a certain amount of time to go from one end of the map to the other, okay? Now, like our universe, when creating video games, everything starts within a cube of boundaries so that you can reference units in between those, so as, like in the game Minecraft, for example, you can build objects within these units, and hence you have your measurement of volume and so forth. Okay, so let's keep that in mind first. We have an artificial area for which we can divide units of measurement inside so as to have geometric shapes, volumes, more so that your little player, Mario, can determine how fast you're going around and how long it takes you to get from point A to point B and so forth, okay? With that, let me just show you briefly what the code would look like. Very simplified version of code. I'm going to create some variables. First, time, because we are a fourth dimensional object. The cornerstone of our existence is the fact that we are trapped in space-time. This is what we're going to hack, so to speak, to traverse the universe instantly. Okay, so here's what we first have. Current time, we're going to call that variable CT. Current time minus the start time, the beginning. Current time, start time is going to be shorter, so that's going to come after. Is going to equal, let's call this one the units traveled, UT. Okay, so this is a very simple kind of thing. Current time minus start time is going to give us how many seconds have transpired since we began the game, and that's going to allow us to determine units traveled. If it's 1 second, then you go one little movement across the screen. Okay, very, very, very simple. So let's add some more variables to this. Movement rate and position. Okay, so ultimately, the units traveled is going to be UT times measurement rate. Let's call that MR, and that's going to equal your position. So units traveled times your movement rate equals your position. So movement rate, this is going to be known as a variable. Let's say right now, for this example, movement rate equals 1. Okay, so current time minus start time equals units traveled. So let's say you've been playing the game for 10 seconds, okay? And based on your movement rate, 10 seconds, you start the game, 10 seconds go by, that's your current time. Current time minus your start time equals your units traveled. Units traveled at this point, being that your movement rate is 1, you come up with a factor of 10. You have now moved 10 clicks across that screen. And that's how fast Mario travels. Just vaguely said. Okay, now here's where things get interesting. Let's ditch our fourth dimensional kind of ways of thinking, and let's think of this as a hacker. Let's say that I have control over, the chipset that controls Mario and the Super Mario world. Well, all I have to do is adjust this variable right here, and let's say I take it to something like, 1,000. Okay, and I just adjust that by adding 3 digits to the end, Now, current time minus start time, let's say you've been playing the game for 10 seconds. Units traveled is going to be 10. Units traveled times your movement rate, which we've now bumped up to 1,000. Well, that's a factor. We're now at 10,000. You've bounced off the back of the video game world. You're beyond the princess, and you know there it is. You have just instantly sped across what we would consider space-time. Okay, so there's another interesting way of looking at the game theory of movement and movement restrictions within time, as we were just talking about. So if you think of this more in a fifth dimensional mode of thinking, well, fifth dimension would enable the ability to manipulate time in that you could move forward, backwards, technically sideways in it. So in essence, your current time minus your start time, you would be able to manipulate either one of those integers, hence deriving any kind of units traveled as you see fit. So in essence, these would be mitigated out. All you're left with is units traveled. It instantly mitigates the bottom half of this because your units traveled are no longer restricted by your movement rate. So all you are left with is position, and that position is infinite. Well, within the construct. So if you take in the constructs of the universe and see this almost as like a virtual reality simulation, even though it's vast and it would take you eons to travel from one corner to the other, just like a Super Mario map very largely, once you realize that that map is projected from a chipset or some other mode of retained memory, those distances are now irrelevant because they're only distances perceived by the user. The thought of traveling, I would replace that with like my eyes are looking here, now my eyes are looking there. Did I travel between? Is there a travel? No. It's just a different point focus of awareness. So there it is. Traveling in the fifth dimension. Probably pretty quite, it could be boring. Yeah. Aside from that, there we have it. If you haven't, there's a video that I did about the first 4 dimensions and how we are actually really boring fourth dimensional beings here, in my opinion, to be temporary, because that's the only thing that makes everything worthwhile. So with that said, I guess I have to go create a link or something in the description in case you want to watch that video. And there it is. Until next time, onwards and upwards, tally ho.